Hi again, everyone. Welcome into Unanchored Boston. Along with Bob Lobel, I'm Mike Lynch, and here we go. Football season has started. We got a lot to talk about today. The old timers game, the Red Sox, Hulk Hogan. Um, down the stretch, here we go. And as always, we're brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, and by the great George Gray, the big wheel we call him, George Gray's Lexington Toyota 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. All right, Bob Lobel, take it away for the formal introduction of the great Steve Buckley.
Lynch, you're looking good today. Buck, you're looking great today. And well, Lynch, you're looking great today too. I don't mean to say that you're looking good and he's looking great, but you're both looking great. I just want to quickly tell you, I was walking down by the store the other day, and a guy came by and recognized me, Buck, and he said, "Oh, I remember you from television. Blah blah blah. I loved you. Why don't you start a podcast?" And I said, "Good idea. I'll check it out with some of my friends." So here we are. We'll pretend this is the first one. Steve Buckley started at Westfield. Worked for the Herald and the prestigious Athletic. Nothing gets better than working for the Athletic, except maybe for the National, which was the forerunner of the Athletic or whatever.
Yes.
You know, those things are hard to keep track of. And then, of course, he was on EEI with Ordway for forever. But anyway, Buck, it's great to see you, and multifaceted. We can multilingual. We can talk about the books that you wrote. We can talk about the greatest arguments in Boston sports, and the wicked good year of 2007 when the Patriots and the Celtics and the Red Sox all exploded and won. We're going to talk about the Red Sox, but don't you think, Lynch, with football starting, we got to talk about football coming right out of the chute?
Only one of the three of us right here was at the opening practice yesterday, and it's the guy down below, not the two guys up above. So, Buck,
No.
First impressions, many camps you've been to, and was this just another opening day, or anything strike you?
I think what strikes me about it is the lack of drama. Number one, there's no one threatening to walk out. There are no lawsuits. Except for Bill and Robert continuing their little patty cake game.
And what is that all about? That was another thing. What is going on with Belichick and Kraft? Get over it.
It's two men who have been enormously successful in what they do. I'll say it to the day I die. Robert Kraft is one of the three most important people in Patriots history in terms of getting the stadium built and so forth. And the other two are Drew Bledsoe and Bill Parcells, because I say that because the new stadium was already being built during the 2001 season. What Robert did when he came in to provide some financial backbone and business acumen to the franchise, Parcells giving it big league chops with his 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, and Bledsoe, really their first real quarterback since Steve Grogan. You know, they had obviously Jim Plunkett before the injuries, and they had Steve Grogan, but they had a lot of guys come and go over the years, and he was a really good quarterback. And then you got Belichick, who's won all these Super Bowls, but their egos are such now that the back and forth seemingly never stops. And you've got Belichick, you get Kraft saying he took a chance on Belichick, which might be true. And then you've got Belichick saying he took a chance on the Patriots, which is a flat out lie, because he was in a bad situation with the Jets, and the Patriots came along and offered him a lifeline. And he did the job in historic fashion. Good for him. So, but that can't be enough for them. They've got to play the game back and forth, and it gets a little tedious.
Why does Belichick even respond? That's so unlike him.
Or is it so like him, and we're just now seeing it? There's a lot of things that were not like him that he does now with quite a great frequency. And you go back to when he was coaching, everything was the next game in the schedule. If they won a Super Bowl by the next summer at training camp, you couldn't even talk about it. That was in the past. He would say, "We are not the defending champions of football. We were the champions of last year. This year we have won nothing." And that was the way he conducted his affairs. Now he walks around the Super Bowl rings. He brings it up all the time. It's something he keeps harkening back to, and perhaps that's because he hasn't won anything in a long time. So he's got to like ladle out this resume, to which he's entitled. He earned those Super Bowl rings. He is, in my opinion, the greatest coach in football history. And to the people who say, "Oh, well, that's just because he had Brady," let's try to close this discussion once and for all. Brady and Belichick, as a tandem, won all those Super Bowls. You cannot say if you take Belichick out of the mix, Brady still wins those Super Bowls, because that's creating an alternate history. It's Back to the Future, where Biff does this, and so forth. Together, they won 6 Super Bowls. That's a fact. That makes him one of the great coaches in football history. The stuff that's going on now, I think, is beneath him, but who am I to say?
Well, instead of on to Cincinnati, it'll be on to South Carolina now.
Hey,
We're
I
on to
hope he's
Cincinnati. We're on
successful.
to,
It's a better story if he's successful. So in that spirit and in that spirit only, I hope he's successful. I hate to stoop to cliche, but yes, I do root for the story.
And he's got a documentary now coming up on some Whoopi or something.
Of course, he's got a document. I'm
Plot-
surprised that we all don't have one coming out soon.
Well, we don't have Jordan, whatever her name is, Jordan Hudson traveling around either on the other side.
No, we don't. I
No.
certainly don't. I think a documentary on you guys. You remember the piece I did in you guys for the Athletics several years ago, the oral history, the stories. You, Lynchy and Lobel and Dino were like an era in Boston sports television that we had never seen before, and we certainly will never see again. With what the 6 and 11 meant in those days, and younger people won't even know what that means. But what a movie that would make! What a documentary that would make!
Well, I don't know, but we'd have to have some edit care.
No, but if you are under whatever age you want to choose, you cannot comprehend what it meant to watch you guys at around 6:25 or 11:25. And I used to, growing up in Cambridge, we used to go to Sox games, and this is before you guys. We're going back to like Don Gillis, that you could go to the game at Fenway, and then because I lived in Cambridge, we could get home fairly quickly. But the goal was to get home in time to see the Yaz home run on 4, 5, and 7. And I don't know what the sequence is now, but back then we knew it. We knew in which order to go. It was 7 usually went to sports first, and then 5, and then 4, or whatever, I forget. But if you did the channel thing, actually you're up in front of the TV. If you did it with the right amount of dispatch, you could see Yaz's home run off Joel Horland 3 different times, which was pretty cool.
Well, you're talking about stuff like back in the 1920s. You're talking about well, they all represent dying institutions, local television and newspapers.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that would be another one. Getting out in the stoop in the morning, and it should not surprise you that I ended up in this business. But I used to read all 3 papers. I used to read the Herald Traveler, I used to read the Record American, and I used to read the Globe. We got the Globe delivered. I delivered the Herald Traveler, and my mother every late morning would go up and buy the Record American because, again, we lived in Cambridge, and they had inside the paper, they had a whole page of Cambridge news. They would call it the Cambridge Rambler, and then on the facing page would be a whole page of Somerville news, which was the Somerville Stroller. And my mother grew up in Somerville, and we all grew up in Cambridge, and that was a must get for everybody in Cambridge and Somerville in those days. And we got the Globe delivered, and Mr. Rossi over in Jackson Gardens had the Globe subscription thing for the neighborhood lined up. So I went out and got the job delivering the Herald Traveler in my neighborhood, which I would get a copy for free. So I'd have ink in my hands because I would read all the papers every morning, and I was in sincerity, I was attracted to that, reading all those sports pages, which is why I wanted to get into this business.
My one of my grandsons is 5 years old, and he's discovered baseball this summer. And he fell asleep the other night with his Red Sox hat on, his Red Sox jersey. And
I feel so sorry for him, Mike. I feel terrible.
I know, but so he says, Grampy, the Red Sox lost last night, 2-3. And I said, okay. I said, how'd you find that out? And so my daughter says, well, I download the ESPN app on his little tablet, and he reads it. And I said, when I was a boy, I used to go down to the front, beat my brother and my father downstairs and go to the front porch and get the newspaper. He goes, what's a newspaper? No idea what a newspaper was. I mean, he gets, like the rest of the world, gets everything here. But it was kind of interesting to see, like, we all remember our first game, but now he's attached to the Red Sox, and which is pretty kind of cool, even though he's going to be disappointed in the end for a while.
Oh, you think?
I should point out that I still read the newspapers every morning.
So do I. I'm with you. I do too.
Now I have made some accommodations. In fact, I'm talking to you on my iPad right now. I get the e-editions of both the Herald and the Globe. And I certainly read The Athletic with great fervor every morning. And I can't wait to see what Jen McCaffrey's written about the Red Sox, and Fluto about the Bruins, and the great Chad Graff, whose Patriots coverage is unparalleled. But I also want to read the Globe and the Herald, and I do so every morning. And it's now I don't get the print edition because I travel a lot. I go to Maine a lot. I go to Fort Lauderdale a lot. But every morning I get, and it's the actual newspaper. That's why they call it the e-edition. See, and you can turn the pages, and I have the paper to read rather than, go to the links. And it's something that Dan Shaughnessy and I talk about all the time. And I'll probably mention it to you guys a million times. I call it the mystery of the next page, because if you just go onto a website, and again, I love websites. I work for one, and I work for the best one that there is. But you've got the stories, there are links, and you cherry pick what you want. But with the newspaper, you don't know what's on the next page, and you can't ignore that page unless you look at it. So when you turn the page, you might see I always use the Suez Canal. I don't know why. You might see a story on the Suez Canal that you're attracted to reading because of the art, because of the headline, or something. But you may come out of it, even if you only read this much, a bit more educated about the Suez Canal, because that's the mystery that was on the next page. And it's for that reason that I love and always will love newspapers.
Well, what does your phone tell you about Mike Vrabel? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, how wide is the Suez Canal?
I don't know. 5,263 feet.
That's pretty good. That's a mile. That's a Suez mile.
Yeah. What you do, if you say it loud with authority, people will assume you're right.
I know.
Yeah.
Does Vrabel show up on your phone, on your links about Mike Vrabel and how he's going to do this year?
Showed up on mine?
Well, any link that you go, that's the one thing. That's
Yeah.
That's why you went to practice yesterday, and that's why we're asking you about Mike Vrabel.
Well, I think Vrabel's running a tight ship. He's a lot more blunt and focused, I think, than Gerard was last year. And I'm a fan of Gerard. I wrote it when they gave him the job. I made the mistake of assuming that Patriots management had seen things in him that I didn't see because I'm on the outside. Doesn't mean he's not a good guy, because I think he is. He just wasn't ready for that line of work. And I don't know what his future plans are, but the fact is, Vrabel has had head coaching experience, and I think he's going to do well. If he, obviously, of course, it comes down to players. And as I wrote today, 2 days ago, I wrote Vrabel, what's on the Athletic site right now, is I was so impressed with Drake May yesterday. He answered a lot of boilerplate questions with boilerplate answers, and it was going nowhere. Stacy finally steps in, Stacy James from the Patriots, and says, all right, last question. And somebody asked one more question. And just as Drake May is stepping off camera, the great Karen Garrigan, a frequent guest on your podcast, by the way, says, oh, hey, you said that this team excites you. What be more specific? And he began talking about how sick he was of the losing, not just last year, which was his rookie year. And this is what really impressed me. He was talking the last 4 or 5 years. I feel bad for those guys 2 and 3 and 4 years ago, and who never got a chance. And it's as though a guy named Bob Hilberg wrote that great book, Total Patriots, that you can get. And as I wrote in the column today, it's almost like Drake May went to went to that book and studied it all night so that he could be up on his
Good.
Patriots history. And it impressed me. And he was serious about it. He wasn't being glib or corny or messagey. He was just saying, I'm sick of the losing in this organization. And as I ended the column that I wrote, I said, his job is to make the Patriots a better team. I think part of what he accomplished yesterday indicates that he's also trying to make them a better organization. So cheers for Drake May based on what I saw yesterday. Does this mean he's going to be any good this year? That Diggs will, be what he used to be, that the offensive line will be improved? I don't know. But based on what I saw yesterday, I came away impressed with the kid.
So let me ask, what's with the little puppy with Mike Vrabel coming out of the field?
I do not know. I didn't stick around for the. I know that there's an interest in dogs with the Patriots right now. That there's a charity in Boston. Was it the Animal Rescue League for adopting pets? I have 3 chocolate labs running around the house right now. It's a little warm out, so they're indoors. So they're tearing apart the carpet downstairs. And I love dogs. And if the Patriots are doing something to advance the cause of pet adoptions, I salute them. I don't know why Vrabel had a dog in the field, but I'm just putting 1 and 1 together and hopefully getting 2.
How many wins do you think they are going to get, Buck?
See, I think they're going to get 9 or 10. I think that Drake May has a year of experience under himself. He's very focused. He's got a pretty good offensive coordinator. I know that there are people who said, "Oh, they should make a clean break from the past and bring in somebody new." But I don't know. Vrabel's more focused. Stephon Diggs, he doesn't have to be the greatest receiver in the NFL, which he once was.
Well,
just
he's
has to be.
pretty good at running boats.
He is. All that is true. But he just needs to be here week after week and be respectable. And so I think there'll be less drama than there was last year. And I think all of that's going to add up to 9 wins, I'll say, maybe 10. But I'm going, the over-under is 8.5. So if you have to pick a round number, it's either 8 or 9. I'm going with 9.
How many are you going with, Lynchy?
Last year I had about 8 or 9. They won what, 4?
Yeah, that's when I went last year. But I'm going with 9 this year.
Well, I mean, the schedule is very, very favorable. It's a weak schedule, so they have a great opportunity. My question to you, Buck, I want to go back to Gerard Mayo and Mike.
You're
Vrabel.
avoiding the question, Mike.
How many will they win? I don't have my schedule in front of me, but I looked at it and I saw 9 wins.
Good. Now we both agree on that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, can I tell you something real quick about the schedule? Because I'll get to most of the road games this year, barring October. If the Sox are in the playoffs and go deep, they actually.
Oh, please, come on! So you can make your plans.
Okay. Well, but for when you book hotels and flights, you got to take all this into consideration.
I got it.
So it so happens they play 3 road games in October. I think it's Nashville, New Orleans, and somewhere else. But they've got back-to-back road games in October. I think maybe Cleveland. No, Cleveland's home. So again, I don't have it in front of me, but the point I'm making is that the schedule this year, I think they've got only 1 game that's outside the Eastern time zone, and they've got a lot of Sunday 1:00 games. So they're not playing a ton of 8:00 games. They're not going to the West Coast. So in terms of wear and tear on the body and getting sleep and so forth, this is an intangible and a small one. But keep that in mind as you look at the season this year. It's a tiny intangible, but one that should be taken note of.
I mean, Buck, I've never had a satisfactory answer to this question. Why did the Patriots waste a year with Gerard Mayo when Mike Vrabel was available?
That's because if you listen to the bedtime story that Robert Kraft likes to tell, there was that trip to Israel several years ago that Gerard Mayo was on, that Gerard really impressed the Kraft family with his being, his nature, his told funny stories. I don't know, but whatever it was on that trip, it very much impressed the Kraft family, and I think they always had him in mind to be the future head coach of the Patriots. And I mean, at one point they practically said it. So when the decision was made to move on from Belichick, they had already, and I think in their heads, I think they had already committed to Gerard Mayo.
Wasn't he the Butch Hobson of football
Well,
coaches? Very
well, at least
similar.
Hobson got 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because when you look at the Butch Hobson era, you know, they almost made the playoffs in '91. Joe Morgan, it was his last year as manager, and they made this great run late in the season. They almost made the playoffs, and still they fired him. And
Well, Gene fired him.
and well, yeah, and I think was it Mike Dowling that interviewed him, and he made the comment that I think the Red Sox are going to find this team isn't as good as they think it is. Wasn't that Mike?
Newmeyer.
No,
Was it Newby?
Newmy, yeah.
Okay, I get my second bananas confused here. And I say that with all respect. I love both
No,
those
no.
guys.
See what? Believe me, he wasn't second.
And well, no, I used to do Sunday morning radio with the late great Bob Newmeyer, and I also covered the Whalers for a year when I was 21, 22 years
Right.
old. When he
Yeah,
was
wow.
the voice of the Whalers. So
I miss
Newby
him
and I
so
went way
much,
back.
Steve. I miss him
But
so much.
but then Hobson comes in 92, 93, 94, and they're three pretty dreadful seasons. And then they bring in I think Kevin Kennedy in 95, and they're right back in the running again, and they go to the playoffs and lose to the Indians. So yeah, unfortunately, Butch Hobson's 3 years are three very forgetful ones. And the parallel is accurate in that neither Gerard Mayo nor Butch Hobson made it to the playoffs, but at least
Right.
Hobson had three swings at the plate.
And Mike, remember Vrabel's from Ohio. He grew up in Akron.
I understand that.
Which is about about 15 miles from Kent State. I just want to point the geographical area.
And he's in that. What's that little thing called where there's like a grove and they have trees named after them or something like that? And he and Tim Fox are both in it. What's it called?
I'm not Buckeyes.
I'm not up in my Ohio State history
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
They're
the
called
local-
Buckeyes. They went to the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah.
So we're going to
So
hear
the-
from since they're playing the Browns this year. We're going to get the history of the Cleveland Browns from Lobel.
No. I'm just telling you, Vrabel grew up in Akron. I don't think that was.
I know he did. Yeah. I know
Okay,
he
I'm
did.
just saying. Just
I talked with Vrabel a while back, and he told me it was right after he was named coach, and I wanted to get him alone. And he had a unique history with because Woody had already stepped down by the time Vrabel was. I think he'd even passed. But Vrabel got to know Mrs. Woody Hayes, who would come to the school a lot, and as a football player at Ohio State, it just seems kind of cool to the image of a 19 or 20-year-old Mike Vrabel talking to Mrs. Woody Hayes is kind of cool.
I told these guys last year, my college roommate, Ernie Pisanelli, had a brother who played at Ohio State, and Ernie had children late in life. So his son was in the Ohio State band. And last year, in a national semifinal game, he got to dot the I. And, I said, oh, that's kind of cool. But when I told guys like Tim Fox that, they just said, you got to be kidding me. You know what an honor that is? Oh, what a great thing that is. And they just went bananas. And but that's a big thing, I guess, around, the Buckeye State.
Hey, Buck, can I ask you about Rafael Devers? If he wants to switch the topic here. Of course, last night he hit a couple home runs and had like 4 RBIs. So all of a sudden the Giants win.
I know.
And the Red Sox win in dramatic fashion. But let's talk about this whole Red Sox thing. I don't mean to jump off the Patriots here, Mikey, if you want to go back. But if you just talk about this mystery team that, okay, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Cubs. They lose 2 out of the 3 to the Phillies. And you think they're on their way to another World Series. Let's see how the Dodgers do when they come to town here in the next 3 days. But I'm just saying, what do you make of this team, Buck? And because I know you're a baseball guy at heart. You got the old-time baseball game coming up. We got to talk about that. What do you make of this team now?
Well, it's what you see on a nightly basis, which is inconsistency, and you can love them one night and tear your hair up the next night. I think largely it's an entertaining team, or at least has the potential to be entertaining. A lot of people, a whole lot smarter than I am, had them at the very highest of their tiers and playoff odds coming into the season. A lot has gone wrong, Bregman getting hurt and so forth, and they're kind of a dumb team on with the base running and throwing to the wrong base and forgetting how many outs there
I
are.
kind of mean Ref Snyder throwing a
Yeah,
throw to home last night after the third out.
which is weird because he's one of the smartest guys in the team. He's
I
the
agree with
guy.
you. What
He's
was
the guy they always talk about as being a future manager or coach or something. And if you talk to him for a minute, you come away saying, "Wow, this guy has got the whole game in his back pocket." Uh, so I guess it can happen to anybody, but. Um, to me, the whole thing keeps coming back to Devers. I'm one of those people who thinks that it was just a salary dump. They overpaid for him, and they were always on the lookout for a way to get rid of him. The Giants have had a hard time attracting a big slugger to their market because of their ballpark not being a hitter-friendly park. Well, so they end up getting a slugger with a big contract who didn't have a trade waiver, so they were able to get Devers, and the Red Sox get out from under that contract, but a big bat is out of their lineup. To say nothing of the fact that Devers, who has a real good talent for going to left center, is at a ballpark where balls go to die. So, but that's now his problem and the Giants' problem, and not our problem. And they're missing his bat. I think they could have handled that situation with him better in spring training. I don't know what was said and how it was said. And yes, at the end of the day, you wish that Devers had been Mr. Good teammate guy and just got in a glove and ran over there. But I think he felt disrespected, or he's just become a prima donna. Again, I'm not that close to the situation to be able to say that, but I didn't like the deal then. I don't like it now. And I think that not having his bat in the lineup hurts. I also understand, well, where are we going to play him? We get Yoshida coming back, and he's mostly a DH, and this and that and the other thing. And if Devers doesn't play first, what do we do with Yoshida? I understand that. That's all roster construction stuff. But I still say they would be a better team with Devers.
What about all this whole when he just Will Clark? Will Clark allegedly showed up 3 times to help him with some hitting, and Rafi just was a no-show each time.
Well, the counterpoint to that story is that Devers didn't want to be taking ground balls at first base because those 3 days, and I gotta be careful how I talk about that because there's a lot of he said, she said going on here. But those 3 days were when the Red Sox were coming into San Francisco. Because you remember, they made the trade on a Sunday after they had finished off a sweep to the Yankees. I was walking from Fenway to Copley Square to meet some friends, and I got as far as Mass Ave when I got a thing saying, "Oh, they just made this trade." And I had to hop in an Uber and go home and rewrite my column. And then they go to Seattle, and the Red Sox and the baseball gods deemed it that the Sox would go to San Francisco after Seattle. So 4 or 5 days later, they're in San Francisco to play Raffy, Devers, and the Giants. And I think those were the 3 days. And I think Devers didn't want to be standing in front of first base next to the Red Sox dugout taking grounders, because it would, I think, if you follow that storyline, the message is that Devers is showing up the Red Sox. See, I wouldn't play first for you, but look at me taking grounders at first. So there could be another side to that. Having said that, I wish he had taken the damn ground balls to the Red Sox in Fort Myers, and this wouldn't be an issue right now.
I'm going to interrupt this for a second, Lynch, and talk about camping. Can I do that while we have you? Just have to do this, Buck, because I forget that I know we asked you this before, but have you done any camping?
I used to go camping a lot. I used to go camping. I camped up in the Mount Katahdin area when I was in college for like 5 days, and still have all my extremities.
That's pretty cool. You ever do any whitewater rafting up there by Mount
I
Katahdin?
have not done any white water rafting. No.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I've been up. It's up that area. Mount Katahdin that's a special area. Beautiful.
Oh, it's a great area. Yeah.
But anyway, Cold Springs RV is the reason I brought this up because they're one of our glorious sponsors, and they're from Ware, New Hampshire, and
Well,
everybody
didn't
says,
you ask me before who I would want to go on a
"Well, hang
bus?
on, Buck,
Yeah,
because that's
that's
Lynch's
going up.
son." No,
That's
that's
going
right.
up.
You have a real good memory for a guy your age. Anyway, Jesus, why did I even do this? Why don't you just take over the whole show? Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire. Where?
Where? Where?
North of Tingsboro and west of Goffstown. Okay, like Jared, we're going into football season. Jared Goff, and town's named after the Detroit quarterback. By the way, okay, that's where the place is located. Cold Springs RV. They do pop. I don't know what kind of camping did you do, Buck? Just like travel trailers, or just motorhome, or just pull
Travel
a trailer?
trailer. Yeah, travel trailer.
Wow, big
Yeah.
time. They have travel trailers, fifth wheelers, uh, all kinds of things that RV people look for. RV, and they, your RV of your dreams is in Cold Springs RV. They have these things that you can get your, no pressure free environment is what I'm trying to say. It's going to make it a summer to remember. There's a lot of summer left, all of August, all of September, and most of October. So why don't you go up to Cold Springs RV and check it out at coldSpringsRV.com. And now back to your point, Steve, about Mike asking you, didn't we ask you one time? Yeah, go ahead, Lynchy. This is be a good
We'll make
creative.
it a little more specific. You know, the deal by now is that we don't pay our guests, but when they finally build this Lobel Lynchy cruiser, each of our guests gets to use it for 7 days to drive cross country. The only caveat is that you have to take somebody with you. And this trip, Buck, you have to pick some former player or manager of the Boston Red Sox, past, present, alive, or deceased.
I know what he's going to say, but that's okay.
Okay, and that person will be riding shotgun with Steve Buckley across country. Who would it be?
I'm gonna try and fool you here. I think I'd take Joe Morgan because
I
he's
knew
got
that
such.
was good. Absolutely was the answer you
Well,
were going to
it's
say.
like it all comes down to one thing. It's a long drive, right?
A long
Yeah.
drive.
Okay, so who do you want riding shotgun who tells good stories?
Perfect.
You know, and I spent a year with Dick Williams. I covered the Seattle Mariners with Dick Williams, and I got along with him very well. But he wasn't much for stories. And I remember I went in to his office early one Sunday morning out at the Kingdom, and they were having one of those Equitable Old Timers games, which were big deals in the 80s. And who's playing for the Equitable Old Timers but Joe Foy, who was one of the Red Sox third baseman in the Miracle Impossible Dream season of '67. He had a grand slam. He started a triple play. And I walk into Dick's office and I said, Dick, guess who's out? Who's playing third base? The Equitable Old Timers. He goes, who? And I said, it's Joe Foy. And I said, tell me a good Joe Foy story. And he just says, I got a lineup to make. Come on. And he didn't even go out to like, hey, remember '67? Boy, that was so much fun. And Dick was not a sentimental guy. He wasn't anecdotal. He never played back in the day, and and I traveled with him. I mean, he invited me up to first class, and because the players and the writers are all, but the coaches and the manager would always be up in first class. And he had a specific question for me in a discussion he was having with Ozzie Virgil and Frank Howard, who were two of his coaches, and I ended up sitting there for 40 minutes. But he was not a gabber, and he's in the Hall of Fame as a manager. You know, he took three different teams to the World Series: the Padres, Red Sox, and A's. But Joe Morgan would be talking about Augie Gallant and Warren Spahn and all this stuff, and you'd get to San Diego, we're going cross country, and he'd have more stories the way back. So yeah, Joe Morgan.
We might give it to you for 14 days.
See,
You touch the West Coast, dip your toe in the water, and then head back east.
love it.
I thought you were going to pick, because there's an anniversary coming up, Harry Gannis.
Harry Gannis. But the problem with Harry is that he didn't live a long enough life. I mean, I understand that you probably know more about Harry Gaines than anybody because you're up from that neck of the woods, and you probably know a gazillion people who knew him. But what was he, 24 when he died?
26, I think. Yeah.
20 and he big football star at BU, a couple of years with the Red Sox, but he didn't get around enough to form the kind of relationships and by the way, not for nothing to quote the late great Lyndon Byers, uh, but wasn't he kind of like a mama's boy and go home and have apple pie and a glass of milk
Yes.
and all that?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
there aren't going to be any Toots Shores and Copa stories coming out of Harry Aganis.
Right.
So
No, but Joe Morgan would have talked about Pawtucket's 33 inning game.
he would have, yes, that's true.
And how did he win 19 out of 20 when he took over? That was amazing. Morgan
I
Mann.
think not to speak ill of the dead, but I think that the team, I think Johnny Mack was a little tired by that point, John McNamara, and I don't think his office door was open to players coming in and having confessionals, and I think that the air had been sucked out of the clubhouse, and as happens with many managers, I mean, by his own account, Terry Francona said it was time for him to go in Boston, that they felt they had that he has indicated that he may have been tuned up by a few people. So, and here's Terry Francona, who's clearly going to the Hall of Fame and should. But I think that there was a sour feeling and note going on in the clubhouse, and Johnny Mack goes, and Joe Morgan comes in and just made up the lineup, and I think there was just a collective. And I'm not saying that Joe was the beneficiary of that, but I think it was good timing.
Buck, do you listen to the Red Sox broadcast a lot?
I do.
What is your opinion?
The radio or the TV? I don't know where you want me to go with this. I think Obi is fantastic.
I do too.
Will Fleming, I don't listen to a lot. I think he's
What
got
about
one of these-
Merloni? I'll get more specific.
Oh, I love Lou.
Okay.
Lou is, do you have a hair across your ass about Lou?
No, I don't have a hair across my ass about Lou, but I think he talks too much. Well, I think he talks too much, first of all. But on the game.
I don't know.
I think there's a lot of information that comes out about exit velocities and all this stuff that's a little over the head of most baseball fans.
Okay, so if you want to go there, I could do it without a lot of that, but I'm also 69 years old and I just want to watch the damn game. I have a 14-and-a-half-year-old lab who's starting to scream now, so if you can hear her, I apologize.
Is there anything you need to get to fix it?
The lab or the broadcast?
No.
What I like about Lou is that A, he's a local guy.
Yeah.
And he's able to bring local sensibilities to what he does. B, he's got good chemistry with the different people with whom he works, whether it's Will on the radio, he's willing to let the game breathe and let the other person talk. If for your taste he's too much on eggs of velo and all that hoo-ha, it doesn't bother me because it goes in one ear and out the other. The way I tell people, as I will tell you now, if there are certain facets of modern day broadcasts that you don't like, and my dog is screaming at me.
Well, do whatever you have to do, Buck. Well, why don't you wait 20 minutes?
If there are certain facets of the broadcast you don't like, that one doesn't like, and I'll give you one that drives some people crazy, which is the gambling. That they're always going to, even the best broadcasters in the country are tossing in little things about the exotic wagering and the odds and plus minus and all that, which has zero interest to me. So I have conditioned my brain that, and they're all doing it because they're all being told to do it and they all want to work. Tom Guerin does a great job in the pre and post, but Tom Guerin wants to keep doing the pre and post, so he'll throw in that stuff that he's required to do. And it's the same thing with in game. I listen to out of market games because I have the MLB package, and you're going to hear that stuff all the time. And I just that's when I reach for my sandwich, or that's when I do something else. I just don't take it in. And I would suggest you do the same with the exit velo. The one that drives me crazy the most is it's a TBS thing. They are obsessed with that graphic showing how big the lead is at first base. Who gives a bleepity bleep 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 about how long the lead is, to the degree that they have to hire some kid from MIT to do this big computer thing indicating with a triangle just say, and it's the same thing, and this goes back to your exit velo. You know what's a good way to do exit velo is to have the broadcaster say, wow, Chuck, he hit the hell out of that one. That tells me he hit the ball really hard. And if he hit it even harder than that, go, oh my God, did he smoke that? You guys have, I presume at some point you've both done some play-by-play. I know you did, Bob, in the radio. Have you done play-by-play, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you do Harvard football for a while or what?
I did Harvard football. I did Patriots. I did
Oh, you did
Celtics.
Patriots, yeah.
Celtics. Mike Gorman, we take off every year for the Big East tournament, and I do 3 or 4 games. So yeah, it's hard.
So since we've gone on the tangent, I have done one play-by-play game in the 47 years I've been in this business. And you mentioned Mike Gorman. Mike Gorman used to do I think they were called the Connecticut Coyotes arena football, and I think it was still Sports Channel, and they were carrying the Connecticut Coyotes arena football, and there was a game at the Garden, so it was the new Garden, so it was like 95 and 96, and Mike was on vacation, and he wasn't going to change his plans to Greece or wherever he went for arena football, so. I think it was Jim Burgoyne called me up from Sports Channel and said, do you want to do play-by-play? And I had Steve Diossi as my color guy, and
Good
the
choice.
sideline reporter was Fred Smirlis. And I said, well, I've watched a million football games. What could be so hard? What I did not take into account was in your head, when you're watching football, and the quarterback drops back, even if you've never done play-by-play, you know how to imitate it. You know, snap the plunkett, he drops back, he looks to his right, he looks to his left. Well, in arena football, all that happens in 1/10 of the time because it's this kind of football condensed to this.
Yeah.
And so the quarterback drops back, and I would say, quarterback, you know, and the whole play happens in half a second. And I couldn't get the stuff out there, and I have secretly gone through all the Sports Channel files and deleted that tape, so it does not exist. There is no recording of me doing arena football play-by-play.
You know, I was doing in the old Garden. I was doing the play-by-play with working with Heinz, and if you looked across the facade between the first and the second balcony, was the time left in the game, in the period. You know, so. Now I get to the new Garden, you look across, and the clock is in the exact same place. So I go 8:18 left in the second quarter, and then I go 8:32 left in the second quarter. I said, how can there be more time? And I said, I was looking at the time of day.
That's a great story. That's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah, and I should point out, I never had the interest in doing play. It wasn't something, and I meant what I said earlier when I read all the. I wanted to be a sports writer, and it wasn't like I didn't think I could do play, but I just never had the interest. But having done it a little bit, and the guys who do it, Joe Castaic for many years, and Ken Coleman, Ned Martin, and then you listen to Sean McDonough, who can gracefully go from football to baseball to basketball to hockey without losing a beat, and have understand the cadence of each sport while he's doing them. And I would love to do one inning of a baseball game because I think I could do okay, because I especially on the radio side, because I have enough anecdotes to fill time between pitches without going crazy. But if maybe when I retire, I'll approach EEI, say, throw me a bone, give me one
Well,
inning.
here's the deal, Buck. If it's on television, the less you talk, the more you say. That's the thing right there, and that's what I would tell
agree.
Maloney.
Yeah.
The less you talk, the more you say.
Yeah, my big argument with Nesson, and this is more of a Shaughnessy thing, is I've only written it once because he writes it every week, which is that when the third out of an inning has been recorded,
You got to get off the air.
yeah, they go right to break, and
You got to get off the air.
Yeah, and as a viewer, you say, let the game breathe a little. And it used to be, because if you go on YouTube and find an old game, the inning will end, and Ken Coleman would say, so the Red Sox lead 2 outs, and at the end of 2 innings, no runs, no hits, 1 error. 1 left. The Red Sox 3, the Indians 2, and that's what's that? 12 seconds they just talked, but they don't do that anymore. They go right to break, and not every broadcast does it. If you watch the Mets games, which I watch a lot of, Gary, Keith, and Ron will keep it, hold it a beat, let the game breathe. They're not going to break down a play or do a replay. They'll do that when they come back from the break, but they do let the game breathe a little without it's just when you watch the game, and particularly if there's a bang bang play to end the inning, and like you can't even absorb what's happening, and all of a sudden there's a mattress commercial flying at you, or Sullivan Tire, or something, and like you what just happened here, and
Cold Springs RV. No.
or that, and of course it was that I'd listen with great intent because it's a superior product.
Thank you very much. How's your old time baseball game coming?
Watching today, and for some reason, Collier. This is the anniversary of Yaz's 400th career home run.
When he styled.
Yeah. So Ned Martin's doing the play-by-play. He goes, "There's a long drive to right field. That's it. He has done it. Now let's just listen and watch." And Martin just, well, Yaz is running around the bases. And I said, he said it, but he did it, and he said it, what should be done and how you should handle those situations.
Mercy.
Yeah, and if
Mercy.
I'm glad you brought that up, because when people complain, I don't mind when today's players put a little razzmatazz and ketchup and mustard on the home run they just hit, and do the bat flip or watch it and stand there. And I always say, Reggie was doing that in the 70s. And Reggie kind of made that his own when we were all younger, and then I said, go to YouTube, look at Yaz's 400th home run. Granted, it was a milestone home run. I think it was against Oakland. I forget.
Yes.
And but he walked halfway to first base. This was the sainted Yaz doing this.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. It was his 400th home run, and he was only the second player in Red Sox history to hit 400 home runs, the other being Ted Williams. Jimmy Fox hit 521 or 512, whatever it was, but a lot of those were with the Philadelphia Athletics. So it was a big moment in Red Sox history, a big moment in Yaz's career. But again, he styled, he pimped. And
what about your
good for him.
old-time baseball? I got to get you the old-time baseball game before we get out of here.
It's August 20th at St. Peter's Field. It's for the third year in a row. It's being played for the Boston home, works with people with MS. And our special guest this year, in addition to Brock Holt, former Red Sox All-Star, who's going to pitch an inning and play a bunch of other positions. He's going to kind of move around a little bit. But our guest of honor is Gus Quattlebaum, who's the scouting director of the Red Sox, and he was diagnosed with MS in 21. And
really, Gus?
Yes, Gus Quattlebaum, and so he'll be at the game, and Brock Holt will be there. We're 96% sure Lou Merlone is going to be there. He's just got to, because the Sox play at New York the next day, and he's got to work some stuff out.
His exit velo will be really.
Well, why don't you go there? You can talk to him about the exit.
No, I'll be
Why
happy.
don't you come to the game? I can
before.
put you two down together, and you can talk to the boy.
I would love to. I've been to the game, Buck. You know that.
Well, Bob is it's the only time we've ever had. I talked about, and this was over 20 years ago. So we were at the tail end of the 6 o'clock sports still being a big deal, but he did the sports live from home plate. I'm fairly sure they crushed CVB in the ratings that night.
No, I'm sure we did.
I was there with the Clemens pitch, and that's that shot of you, me, and Shaughnessy leaning against the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clemens is pitching. There's the three amigos right across the fence right there.
Yeah, you've had some great guests there. You've had some really great,
awesome,
great guests.
But the picture that he's referencing, Rogers in his windup and standing along the back fence, are Dan Shaughnessy, Mike Lynch, and Steve Buckley, three very old guys who've been around for a long time. And I always tell people, I always show them the picture. I said, this is the picture of four guys who combined to win 354 games in the major leagues.
Steve, I have to ask you this. It's a more serious question that we're talking about. We've had a lot of fun, but you wrote a column called "Welcome to My Coming Out Party."
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about that and how it impacted your life and how difficult it was for you to write that column and how the reaction has been since you wrote
Well,
that
that was
column.
2011. It was easy to write. It was not so easy to press the send button to send it to my editor. It was in the queue for a few weeks before we decided which day to run it. And in fact, I got in touch with Glenn Ordway. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, this is the column in which I said that I'm gay. And I talked to Glenn. Glenn knew about it. I had met with Glenn a long time earlier, and I said, "Look, at some point, I'm going to do this thing," and we decided we're going to do a whole show on it. And I called Glenn. I said, This is gonna run on Thursday." And he looked at the schedule, and they had some special thing they were doing on the show that day. He says, "It would really be work better for me if we did it tomorrow." And I was sitting at a restaurant with Joe Shaka, who's the editor of the Herald at the time, and I held the phone. I said, "He says he wants to do it tomorrow." So at that juncture, I had the column on my phone and pressed send, and that sent it to Joe Shaka, which and now the Herald's got it, and I was on the show the next day, and it was a little nerve wracking for a while, but it's so funny. It's so long ago now that I met a lot of really great people I wouldn't have met otherwise in my life. And but I met with the people at GLAAD down in New York because they have a specialist who works with what they call public people coming out. And if you're in the public eye, as media people are, they give you certain little things to do and not to do. And one of them was to understand that your career probably won't change. A lot of people, when they come out, and this has been a problem for a few people I know, is that they think they're going to become this big national spokesman on every single topic, and they're going to end up with their own TV show and become wealthy. And then there are some people who think, "Oh my God, my life's over. I'm going to get ruined." And the GLAAD people produce dozens of cases where people's lives basically went on the same, and as was the case with me. I didn't I didn't lose any gigs. Actually, I did lose the big show, Glenn's show, but that wasn't because of me. They canceled Glenn's show like 3 months later, and I called Glenn. I said, "See, I came out. Now I've lost my gig on Afternoon Drive." Um, that was when EEI made the disastrous management. EEI management made the disastrous decision to get rid of his co-host and pair him up with I think it was Michael Hawley, who's fantastic. But Michael and Glenn liked each other too much and respected each other too much, and they sat there and agreed or mildly disagreed for 4 hours every day, and the show lost all its mojo. Whereas opposed to having me and Tony Maz and McAdam and Fred and all, and some days we have an argument that would spill out into the hallway legitimately, and it was good radio. But I didn't lose the big show because of the column I wrote. I mean, Glenn lost the show, and I was collateral damage to that. But other than that, my life went on just great. But thank you for asking.
What,
No,
would it have been easier for you in 2025 than it was in 2011?
It might be harder.
In what
It might
way?
be harder. Well, we live in a supercharged political climate right now, and people are easily offended on both sides of the spectrum. And there's a lot more finger pointing than there used to be. And uh, people, if I came out now, people say, "Oh, you're just a DEI hire," and I certainly wasn't then. And so it might be harder now. I think, I mean, let's look at it this way. And I wrote a piece that was for The Athletic that was in the New York Times during Pride Month in June. I interviewed Jason Collins from the NBA, Ryan O'Callahan, who used to play for the Patriots, and Robbie Rogers from MLS, who all came out while active or barely inactive. And how many players have come out since then? The last several years. We've got Luke Prokop, the minor league hockey player, who's come out. There's a former pitcher from the Indians, whose name escapes me right now, and I apologize, but he's since come out, but after his career ended. But we don't have any active players in Major League Baseball right now. Billy Beane, who died last year, who was an openly gay player after his career ended. By the way, this is the Billy Beane without the E at the end of the name. There were two Billy Beans. This is not the Oakland A's Billy Beane. And And Billy was a good friend of mine, and Billy died last year. And I know that he would tell you if he were here right now that one of his regrets that we didn't have in the aftermath of his landing a big job with Major League Baseball and doing sessions with all the clubs in spring training every year, that there were no openly gay players after that. So that's something that'll have to get worked on. I'm glad I came out when I did. That's my pat answer, though.
Um, Switching gears, going back to the Red Sox here. Have you ever seen catcher's interference in back-to-back games have
No.
such an impact on a game? Both nights. I mean, they impacted the game greatly.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff about stealing strikes and framing pitches and moving your glove here and there and the other thing. Uh, I'm less concerned about that, but and I understand that the call was the correct call. Um, but when you don't swing the bat and you still get catcher's interference, they might want to tweak that rule moving forward. And there's no sour grapes because our beloved Red Sox lost. That's got nothing to do with it. It could have been the other side, and I would have felt the same way. If a guy's barely moving his bat, and but then again, you could also argue, well, keep the catcher, keep the Met where it's supposed to be, and just catch the damn pitch.
Yeah.
So I think this is yet another case where today's metrics people and modern day coaches and managers overthink the game. And I'm going to steal a segue here to point out that when you look at all the coaches now and these young coaches that are preaching an entirely different gospel, I always think to spring training years ago when I'd go down the minor league complex, and there were so many grizzled old coaches down there teaching fundamentals, and Rex Slider and Charlie Wagner and Eddie Popowski and Johnny Pesky, and all these guys were guys who played for years and years and years, and they were very big on fundamentals. All the stuff that we're talking about, those guys wouldn't even know how to plug in a computer, let alone use one. And I guess what I'm saying, and you see the same thing in major league coaching staffs now. Like, I don't know any of these guys. And it used to be one of my joys every year at the beginning of spring training was look at all the rosters and see who all the coaches were, because inevitably they were guys I saw playing growing up, or guys I used to know and they were playing on other teams, guys that I covered. So if we're going into Kansas City, and Bob Schaefer is an old friend of mine. He used to manage the Tidewater Tides when I was in the minors, and he's now a coach with the Royals. Hey, going up to see Chef, how you doing? And blah blah blah. And John Gibbons, who I know very well, he used to manage the Blue Jays, and he's a bench coach at the Mets. Gibby, how you doing? And but there aren't a lot of those guys around now, and I think that more of those kind of people should be reintegrated in baseball, with the understanding is their job is to teach the basics of baseball. And you cannot argue with me that there's a dearth of baseball basics being taught right now.
Yeah, no, it seems pretty obvious, especially if you watch the Red Sox. I mean, they're just terrible on fundamentals. Terrible.
And by the way, I don't mind that all these, whiz kids are running around with laptops and iPads and metrics. That's where the game has gone now. And if since every other team is doing it, it behooves the Red Sox to do it. So I understand there's a seat at the table for those people. I get that. I respect that. I understand that. But it shouldn't be one over the other 100%.
Okay, let me ask you two quick football questions so we jump around. Just so to jump around. Will Robert Kraft ever make the Pro Football Hall of Fame while he's alive? And what's going on?
Yes, he will, and he should have made it 3 or 4 years ago.
What about Jonathan Kraft? When is this transition going to take place?
Oh, I have to assume that transition doesn't happen as long as Robert's in good health. And since I don't have the power to predict bad health and good health, I didn't talk to Robert yesterday. I understand he was running around talking to some of the reporters. I was there, but I wasn't in the spot that he was in when he was talking. From what I can see, he's still got a bounce in his step, so I wouldn't be cleaning out his office just yet.
Let me ask you this one here. Saturday mornings used to be Three Stooges and old wrestling with Bruno Sammartino and Chief Jay Strongbow, but a guy named Hulk Hogan came along in the late 70s and early 80s and just he was part of a number of people that just sent that sport into the stratosphere, where it still is today. Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
Every
and I miss the Hulk Hogan because the names that you just I was one of those kids in the '60s, and I can go on and on. Smasher Sloan, Gorilla Monsoon, the Stanford Stomper, Tony Altamori, Lou Albano, and I loved, and I went to the Garden, and Antonio Piazzi, Spiro Sorion, and Eduardo the Flying Frenchman Carpentier. And then by the time Hulk Hogan came along, I was, I guess, in my early 20s, and I kind of aged out of wrestling and what it became. And I think, I don't know if the Obits had mentioned it, he played a character in Rocky 2
Yeah.
that throws Rocky. And I think that he had already had his time in the WWE, and I don't think he was yet what he would become. And I think that the success of Rocky 2 uh, took his career to the moon and back. And I have nothing against pro wrestling. It is what it is, except that all their wrestlers seem to mysteriously die in motel rooms at age 51. But that's a different story. Um, it's a dangerous sport. Let's be honest. I mean, it's a hard sport. It's a brutal sport, and it bears no recognition to what it was when I was a kid. So it's not my cup of tea. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the hell out of it. I should tell you real quick. I did a story on Lou Albano once, and I was supposed to call
captain.
him the captain. I was supposed to call him at a certain time. They gave me his number, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. I called the number, and a woman answered the phone, and it was like, he lived in Westchester somewhere, and the woman goes, "Hello," and I said, "I'd like to speak to Lou Albano, please." And she goes, "Hold on, Louis," and you can hear right in the background, "Yes, telephone, okay, I'm coming," and it was like I was talking to Ozzie and Harriet, and all of a sudden he goes, "Hello," and I go, "Captain Lou, it's Steve Buckley for the Boston Herald. I was supposed to go." And all of a sudden, Steve Buckley, the Boston Herald. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna pencil neck you, and I'm gonna, and a minute early, he's reading the Newsday or something in his chair, or Westchester Daily Item, and his wife is making brownies, and there's a little kid throwing a football on the lawn, and oh, I love that story. It's just that that for that smidgen of time, I got Lou out of character. I love that.
That's great.
I went to the uh, Hulk was featured in the first 7 WrestleManias. WrestleMania 1, my wife was overdue pregnant with our second child, and Brian Leary was doing a story for Channel 5 that day, and he saw me and Mary Ellen, and so he said, "What are you doing here at WrestleMania when you look like you're about to drop a baby?" She said, "If Hulk Hogan cannot bring on labor, I've lost all hope. Nobody can bring on labor."
That's
And
great
sure
stuff.
enough, like that night or the next day, boom. And we should have named Molly. We should have named her Molly Hulk Lynch or something like that. Molly Hogan Lynch.
This is not for nothing again, the great late Lyndon Byers, but I just saw in Joe Castig a couple of years ago. He covered the Muhammad Ali Chuck Wepner fight for a Cleveland TV station, if you can believe that. And he asked him a one-on-one question, and the question was it worth it, Chuck? And Wepner said yes, it was. And I guess he was supposed to go on the Today Show the next day because the fight was, I guess, in Cleveland or something, and uh, and he was supposed to go on TV the next day on the Today Show and talk about Joe Castig, but his wife went into labor and he bailed on the show. He didn't go because he went to the hospital because his wife was, it wasn't Duke, it was one of the other kids or something. But
Hey, let me get
Well,
this spot
priorities.
before we say goodbye. Hey, if you're thinking about a new car, go where Lobel and Lynch go. Go see our good friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We've been customers for years because we know that George Gray will treat you right. They're a family-owned and operated dealership that we trust, and you can trust as well. Go see the big wheel, we call him, the great George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. I know he's a big fan of Buck. He's a big fan of wrestling. He's a big fan of everything we talked about today. And stick your head in the door and See what they have for you. If you just need some service, stop by. And of course, they're on Mass Ave, which runs right through the great city of Cambridge, all the way down
It does.
Arlington and Cambridge. That's and then the river, right?
If you walk out of that Lexington Toyota dealership and drive toward Cambridge for about 3 miles, pull over on the right-hand side, and you will be at Frank's Steakhouse, whose owner is
Yes.
George Rabanis, whose bid for a no-hitter for Boston College was broken up by Harvard University's Mike Lynch, and that's a true story.
That's
Shame
because
on you.
if he had thrown the same pitch, he threw for strike one and strike two, I could see the flames coming off the ball. I was so afraid. I just wanted to swing at strike three and get out of there. And he throws this dinky curveball. I had already bailed out of the box, and my left foot is like right where the third base coaching box is, and I just hit one down the left field line for a stand-up double. And he asked for a picture of me years later, and I said, "Thanks for hanging one for me." Who's that, Buck?
That's his dog watcher.
It's George Rabanis. No, I'm just kidding.
Lou Albano calling you back.
If he is, it's a long distance call.
And the captain was in a great video with Cindy Lauper, right?
And
The captain was
again,
on the phone.
he's another guy whose career was taken to another level because he appeared as Cyndi Lauper's father, and girls just want to have fun.
Yeah, yep.
And that might have been why I called him. Now that I think about it.
Great
Yeah, I
job,
think
Buck.
it is,
Lobe. We should have been in wrestling.
Great job, Steve.
Buck, you're the best.
Take
Thank
care,
you so
guys.
much.
Steve Buckley,
Yeah, thanks.
the athletic, and many other talents, but more importantly, a good friend of ours and a good friend of every one of you that's out there watching and listening to this. So, Buck, thanks a lot. We'll do it
The
again.
Athletic. The Athletic is the place.
Absolutely spectacular. And
Take
make
care.
sure when you subscribe, that you subscribe to YouTube. You can find us at YouTube, and all you do is just hit the button, and there you are. And we'll see you next time on UnanchoredBoston.com.